The rain clung to the plastic walls of the bus shelter, making everything outside look soft around the edges like a dream you couldn't hold on to. The kind of rain that muffles sound and memory. Leona stood small beneath her hood, boots planted on the damp concrete, waiting for the bus, and her mother, just as she always did. But that day, something was different. A digital screen flickered to life on the side of the shelter, one of those rotating community ads that no one ever really notices. But this one stopped her, froze her. A missing child alert. A boy. Brown hair. Pale skin. Big, glassy eyes that stared straight through the screen and into her bones. There was something wrong with the photo, not with the boy, but with what he pulled up inside her. A tug. Deep and disorienting. The name beneath the picture meant nothing to her. But the face, it felt like something she'd forgotten, or something someone had taken. She reached out without thinking, her fingers leaving faint prints on the slick surface. In that moment, the world blurred, not because of the rain, but because of the recognition. And from behind her mother's voice, too calm, too careful, said her name, like a warning. "Come on, Leona, let's go." She obeyed, but her feet felt heavier. The screen blinked again and moved on. But the image was burned in her mind. The boy with her eyes. She didn't know yet what it meant. But the silence in her mother's voice, the flicker of panic behind her father's smile, the locked doors, the packed suitcases. It had already begun. This is the story of a child who was never missing, and a truth that refused to stay hidden. It begins with a face in the rain. It had always felt like a quiet life. The kind of life you didn't notice from the outside, a pale blue house with lace curtains and tulips by the porch. A fridge covered in report cards and drawings of stick-figure families with big smiles. There were bedtime songs. Saturday, pancakes. The soft jingle of dog tags, even though they didn't have a dog anymore. Leona Sanders was 9. She had brown hair, a single dimple, and a laugh her mother said was too big for such a little girl. She had never questioned where she came from, or why her father always triple-locked the front door, or why her mother flinched at unexpected knocks. She had no reason to. Until that day. Until the bus stop. It was raining soft and steady, the kind that patters against glass without ever truly stopping. She and her mother stood beneath the plastic shelter, close enough to hear each other breathe. Across from them, a digital screen blinked through rotating ads. Car insurance. A frozen pizza special. And then, missing Tom Rockwell. Age 2. Brown hair. Fair skin. Eyes like the ocean just before it storms. Her own eyes. Leona didn't speak at first, just stared. And beside her, her mother shifted. Not much a subtle catch of breath. A hand tightening on the strap of her purse. But Leona noticed. Children always do. "Why does he look so sad?" she asked softly. Her mother didn't answer right away. "Sometimes people get lost," she said finally, without looking. "And sometimes they're taken." The bus arrived before Leona could ask more, but the image followed her onto the seat. sat with her through the ride home, curled up at her feet like a question that wouldn't let go. That night, the rhythm changed. No dinner, no television, no arguments about bedtime. Instead, her mother whispered in the hallway while her father paced the kitchen. A suitcase appeared in the living room. Then another. Her schoolwork disappeared from the fridge. And the worst part, they smiled through all of it. Not happy smiles. Not real ones. Smiles that stretched too wide. Smiles that tried to hide something behind their teeth. "We've got a surprise," her father said, kneeling to her height. "We're going away for a little while. Just a fun trip. The three of us." Leona looked at the bags, her notebooks shoved in between sweaters. Her toothbrush still wet, and something inside her shifted. "Where are we going?" "You'll see." Her mother replied too quickly. "We'll explain later." "But..." "Stop asking so many questions." "Leona," her father snapped, voice sharp enough to cut the air. Silence settled after that, not peaceful silence, but the kind that grows in the corners of a room and crawls up the walls when no one speaks. They packed in the dark. They left before morning. The neighborhood slid past the window as they drove. Familiar streets blurred into each other. Nothing looked like home anymore. And somewhere inside her, Leona began to feel the space between what she'd always believed and what might actually be. She didn't know what the name Tom Rockwell meant, but she couldn't stop hearing it in her head. Not like a name, like a shadow. And the way her mother had looked at that screen, like she'd seen a ghost. The story continued, but in a way no one expected. Not even her. The photo was there again. Same little boy. Same soft jaw. Same storm-colored eyes. Same ache. This time, it wasn't on a bus stop screen. It was on Melanie's coffee table, folded open on the Sunday paper. Waiting like a question someone was too afraid to ask out loud. Leona didn't mean to see it. She'd come to Zoe's house to forget. To laugh. To pretend her suitcase wasn't stuffed with textbooks and winter coats in the middle of spring. They sat on the floor, piecing together a jigsaw of a lighthouse and crashing waves. When Zoe looked up, held out the paper, and grinned. "Hey, this kid looks kinda like you. If you were a boy." Leona stared at it. At him. Zoe's laugh trailed off. Awkward. Realizing the words had landed wrong, but the damage was done. Leona didn't respond, and Melanie, who had been wiping down a nearby shelf, humming softly, stopped mid-motion. She walked over, slowly, drying her hands on a towel that suddenly had nowhere to go. She looked down at the paper, at the face of the child printed beneath the words, "Missing Tom Rockwell." Her expression shifted just slightly. Not shock, not sadness, recognition. She didn't say a word, just stood there, staring. And in that silence, something old and buried cracked open in Leona's chest. That night, the world tipped sideways. Her parents arrived early. Too early. Rebecca didn't knock. Didn't wait for pleasantries. She was already halfway up the walkway before Melanie could open the door. "Something's come up," she said quickly. We're leaving tonight. Melania blinked. I thought Leona was staying for dinner. Blondes changed. Behind her, Calvin waited in the car, the engine running. Leona's heart dropped when she saw the back seat. Packed, luggage up to the windows, boxes, duffels. Even her school backpack crammed between them like a puzzle no one meant to solve. We're going on that trip we mentioned, her mother said. Surprise. But there was no excitement in her voice, only a tremble. Melanie stood frozen in the doorway. This is very sudden, she said. Where are you going? Rebecca's smile flickered. Somewhere quiet. Just for a bit. Zoe tried to hug Leona goodbye, but she barely heard her. The car door slammed shut behind her, and just like that, she was gone again. They drove in silence, fast and aimless. Streetlights slipping across the windshield like ghosts too tired to haunt. Mom, Leona whispered, "Why are we leaving right now?" "We told you," her mother said tightly. "It's a holiday." But we packed everything. That's when her father snapped. "Stop asking questions." Leona. Her voice folded back into her throat. She stared out the window. But the world outside felt wrong, unfamiliar neighborhoods, nameless exits, nothing that felt like holiday, everything that felt like running. The hotel was beige and clean, but the lights buzzed too loud, and the hallway smelled like bleach and burnt coffee. Inside the room, her parents moved fast, curtains drawn, voice low, keys clutched tight. And then, in the quiet of the lobby lounge, as they tried to act normal, iced tea for her, wine for her mother, 2 sweet smiles for the concierge, the night cracked open. A man in the corner, watching, then standing, then shouting. "You're disgusting," he said. "People like you shouldn't have children." Rebecca went pale. Calvin's hand tightened on the table. The room spun. The phone in her mother's purse buzzed over and over again. She ignored it, but it didn't stop. Later, in the hotel room, Leona found the phone, curious, worried, and answered it. Melanie's voice came through, panicked and shaking. "Leona, is that you? Thank God. Listen to me. That boy in the newspaper. The one you showed me." "I remember," Leona whispered. "Leona, sweetheart, I think that boy is you." Leona's heart stopped. Behind her, the door creaked. Her mother stood in the doorway, frozen, pale. Her gaze dropped to the phone in Leona's hand. And just like that, the lies began to collapse. One by one. Faster than they could be covered. And from somewhere behind that silence came a truth they could no longer outrun. The night didn't fall quietly. It was torn open. Sirens came first, shrill and close. The kind that make your stomach drop even when you've done nothing wrong. Then headlights, bright and blinding, flooding the taxi from every direction. Leona sat in the back seat, her knees pulled to her chest, her breath too loud in her ears. She could feel her father tense beside her. his hand twitching on the door handle. Her mother said nothing, just stared straight ahead. Her jaw clenched tight enough to crack. Outside, red and blue lights reflected across the windshield, like a storm made of color. Voices barked through megaphones. Step out of the vehicle. Now. Hands where we can see them. Her parents didn't speak. Then slowly, almost in unison, they opened the doors. The street was slick with recent rain. The sound of it, mixing with the sharp click of handcuffs, filled the night like a song you never want to hear again. Leona was pulled gently from the car. A voice said her name soft. Careful. As though it belonged to someone who already knew she was breaking inside. Her mother was kneeling in the road, her hands raised. Tears streaked her cheeks. Please, she whispered. Don't take her from me. Her father didn't cry. But he looked at Leona not with panic, but with something harder to name. Love. Or guilt. She couldn't tell the difference anymore. Later, under the fluorescent lights of the station, the world flattened. No more running. No more pretending. Just a table. A chair too big for her small frame. And a photo printed. Grainy. And painfully familiar. A detective slid it across the table like it weighed something heavier than paper. This boy, he said. His name is Tom Rockwell. He disappeared from an orphanage 7 years ago. We think he might be you. Leona stared at the photo. It was him again. The boy from the ad. The newspaper. The bus stop. The one who had followed her like a shadow. She shook her head slowly. That's not me. I'm not a boy. I've never been a boy. The adults exchanged glances. The social worker to her left, Janine, leaned in gently. Her voice almost a whisper. No one is saying what you are. Leona, we're just trying to understand. Trying to help you understand. But Leona didn't want understanding. She wanted her mother. She wanted pancakes and bedtime stories, and a name that didn't feel like a mistake. Then, the officer placed something else on the table. A small orange pill bottle. Her mother's handwriting, looping and neat, marked the label. But the name of the medication, it wasn't familiar. Not albuterol. Not asthma relief. Estrogen. Hormone therapy not for children. Not for breathing. Not for her. The room spun. She remembered every morning, her mother handing her the tiny pill. Water cupped in the same pink glass. For your lungs, she'd said. Remember the night you couldn't breathe. And Leona had believed her. Because why wouldn't she? But now she was staring at something that made no sense. That rewrote the story she had always known. Her chest felt hollow. Everything she had once trusted suddenly felt like a disguise. She looked again at the photo, then down at her hands. Were they his? Were they hers? She wasn't sure anymore. The truth wasn't just unraveling, it was being carved from her skin, piece by piece. And somewhere behind her eyes, something began to crack, not all at once, but slowly, like a mirror splintering from the inside out. The truth didn't come all at once. It came in fragments like broken glass, scattered across a bedroom floor. Sharp, cold, impossible to avoid. Leona sat in the small interview room, her feet not quite touching the floor, while the adults spoke in hushed voices that weren't really whispers, just words too heavy to say aloud. "You were taken," the detective had said. "Your name was Tom. You were reported missing when you were 2. They raised you as their own." And Leona had listened still and quiet the way a child does when they realize no one's going to tell them a story with a happy ending. Her parents, no. Not her parents had stolen her, but they had kissed her scraped knees, taught her to read, sung to her when nightmares clawed through the dark. So, which version was true? The kidnappers or the caretakers? The answer didn't feel clean. It didn't feel fair. It didn't feel real. And when she finally asked the question that had been pulsing in her chest all night, "Why?" the room fell silent. No one answered. Because there wasn't one. There was love. There was grief. There was need. But there was no answer that could make this okay. Later, in the back seat of a quiet car, Leona pressed her forehead to the window. The world outside passed in soft smudges of light. Every road they took felt like a road she didn't recognize. Melanie sat beside her. Not a mother. Not a stranger. Just someone who had seen. "I know it doesn't feel like it now," she whispered. "But you're still you, no matter what anyone says." Leona didn't respond. Because the thing was, she didn't know who you was anymore. At the hospital, they took her blood, checked her vitals, ran tests she didn't understand. Their words blurred together like static in her ears. Hormone exposure. Identity confusion. Long-term trauma. She looked at the ceiling while they poked and prodded her. The fluorescent lights hummed like they were trying to drown out her thoughts. And when it was over, when the questions stopped for a moment, she walked past a mirror in the hallway. She didn't recognize the child staring back. The clothes were hers. The face was hers. But it felt detached, like something she was borrowing, or something that had been borrowed for her. The mirror didn't smile. It didn't cry. It just stared hollow-eyed and still. She turned away. Behind her, a nurse called her name. Tom. And for the first time, she didn't answer. Because whoever that child was, the one with the sad eyes in the poster, they weren't gone. They'd just been hidden. And now, they were trying to find their way back. But what comes next? When the past no longer fits, and the future hasn't been written yet. When even your name feels like someone else's story. The truth was out. But identity, that would take longer. It always does. She saw her face in a mirror and didn't know the name behind it. The pills, the poster, the story whispered behind her back. All of it. Scattered pieces of a life that never truly belonged to her. Now, every reflection asks a question she doesn't yet know how to answer. Not who she is, but who she's allowed to be. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the names, the lies. The fear a child waits to be chosen by herself. Not by them. If this story stayed with you, let us know below. Like the video. Subscribe for the next piece of the truth. When it surfaces, and share how it made you feel. We're listening. Because sometimes what's buried is still alive, still watching, still waiting to be named.